Brothers WISP. The Brothers WISP, Brothers WISP. The Brothers WISP. The Brothers.
Hey everybody, this is Tommy with the Brothers WISP, coming to you this beautiful Friday afternoon. With me here, I have Zach. He's over on my left. Yeah, he'll be on my left today. And where are you out of, Zach?
Northern Minnesota.
Northern Minnesota. What do you do up that way?
I do a couple of different things. I do IT consulting as well as WISP operations. So I got my hands in a couple different cookie jars there. Lots of fun projects.
Yeah, lots and lots of fun projects. So you're up there. I'm coming from the great state of Illinois, where nobody seems to want to say, "Welcome to Illinois, Tommy. This is such the great state ever." No one says that. So
I feel like we talked about that in the past.
yeah, it's interesting. It's the first time ever in my life that I've ever been somewhere where like people are like, "Hey, isn't this place so wonderful?" Like I've been to Mexico, I've been to Hungary, I've been to Poland, all over the world, and like people have pride. Not in Illinois. It's terrible. But it's very green here and very humid, which is nice. It's good for my hair, is at least what I've been told. So before we get into the meat of the matter, we're going to go through our sponsors. The Brothers WISP is brought to you by Sonar, a scalable, intuitive, and comprehensive ISP billing and operations support system. Learn more at Sonar.Software. Tower Coverage is your RF propagation system to empower your network. Real-time data metrics enable your coverage area, reaching your customer base, and more. The industry's best RF propagation mapping system allows website integration for customer sign-up and pre-qualification. Use this data to scientifically plan your network expansion and help your WISP succeed. Get a free trial today at towercoverage.com. And then last podcast, we introduced our newest sponsor. Shout out is Presee, is an edge network QoE solution that enables proactive management of the network and subscriber experience to achieve higher customer satisfaction while lowering operational costs and increasing revenue. Presee is made by Aterlo Networks, whose goal is to enable local and regional ISPs to thrive by solving network problems with products that people love. Launched in 2017, Presee has helped more than 400 ISPs in the US and around the world deliver. Oh man, I did not look at this. ISPs around deliver better internet to their subscribers. Well, I'm going to fix that one. I apologize, guys. So we did, as I said, we did a podcast last 2 weeks ago with the Presee guys. That was a lot of fun. Got a lot of great feedback. So if you haven't listened to that podcast, definitely take a swing at it. We got super technical. We had a bunch of guys on, John and Greg, and two of the Presee guys, Jeremy and Dan, and we had a lot of fun. And it was a blast. So and I got to fangirl out all over the place about them because I like them as a company. So, man, it felt like it's been weeks, years actually since then. Actually, it's just been a blur of a life for me. What's new with you over up north?
Well, we're in storm season now, so lost a few radios on towers already. Got to get up and replace a handful of those. So it's we're in full swing here. If it's not snow and ice, it's lightning and hail.
Yeah, I definitely do not miss Colorado's hail. It totaled my car last year, and as I was mentioning before the show, I was talking about how we had a radio just get trashed by 3-inch wide hail, and it was just like 3-inch diameter, and just like everything just goes. And I've actually been seeing a lot of posts on Facebook of a lot of guys all over the states getting getting hit by lightning or whatever. And there was actually a really cool story. I forget the guy on his name on Facebook, but he had two different guys. I believe David Busch sent him a radio. It was a 450M. The guy had a 450M go down. Couldn't get any spares. Obviously, no one has them in stock, ready and waiting. David sent him a radio, and then one of the guy's competitors came and helped him climb the tower, actually. And I thought it was a really like, that's the spirit of WIS. Like we're all
a good story.
Yeah, the guy spent his weekend helping out, and they compete in the same town, and it's like they're both out there trying to get the best service for their customers, and they aren't out to cut each other's throat. Because, like, I mean, a guy can't climb a tower by himself, and if you're a one-man show, and a radio goes down, and tower climbing crews 2 weeks away, customers are down now. So this really is, I feel like, you don't hear about that in a lot of different industries, and that's one of the things that really inspired me about the Brothers WISP. So that we come together and such. So definitely, keep an eye out there for your buddies and everybody in the local area. Maybe a worst case scenario, buy each other a beer sometime and just get out and have a conversation about how fun customers can be. So it's also been a pretty big news cycle for MikroTik stuff. We get our Docker support back, and that has actually caused quite the chain of probably how bad we as network operators probably are of various ideas of what we could host on our Docker containers. I don't know if you you contributed, but I felt that my favorite was Docker container running Apache server to present the MikroTik web interface in the classic Ubiquiti M5 menu system to truly unify the user experience for WISP.
Yeah, that one was pretty good.
I thought so too. Greg said container running crypto mining on all customer routers. I mean, that's a moneymaker right there.
Yeah.
Like
get some ROI on those routers.
Yeah, get it done quick. Although Justin Miller started off with a unified network controller in a container on MikroTik. That was actually sounded useful.
I had that same idea, because that's a number of the like business customers that I'll work with have like one or two APs, and it's like I don't want to do like a cloud hosted controller for the two APs for a single customer. If I could throw a little Docker container on like a HAP squared or HAP cubed or something like that, I mean, it's not doing a lot. Just run it right on there and have it all contained in that single unit, not have to have a unify a cloud key, or because you can't get them, and that would be really, really interesting use case there.
Yeah, if you could actually combine that, like, I've always been like, when I'm teaching somebody, I want to like have a piece of equipment that just does one thing. Like, this is just a router. Don't think about anything else that it does. And like not having to be able to do the don't wave your hands. Don't think about all these other menu things. But like really the ability to conglomerate everything all into a single box is the advantage that you bring to the table with MikroTik a lot of the time.
I wouldn't do that like on my core, BGP router or anything, but little customer router, or even, hey, customer wants to do DNS filtering or ad filtering, throw a Pi-hole container on it on all your customer routers, and it just comes as a service kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there was actually one of the guys was talking about how they'd worked to get Jonathan Morrison talked about how there's some little things that you have to make some edits to. I guess if you're in RouterOS 7.4 beta 5, there's some syntax changes that you have to kind of pay attention to. Just note list equals name, name equals key, value equals value is what he mentioned. So just kind of keep an eye out for that if you're trying to play around with it yourself. It is working. Some guys have followed the help.mikrotik.com /RouterOS blah 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 container stuff, and they've got that working, but it is definitely a not clean system at this moment. So, but yeah, like for a home user, like I would love to do Unify at like customer premise all the time. And then like I actually tried to do that once, but and do like a Unify key and then a switch. And then we were going to have PowerBox Pros be the fiber optic ONT, and it would be the router as well. So we run an Ethernet cable in, have a Unify switch with a cloud key in there, and just like this box, and just lock it. Customer never touched any of this. And then access points run throughout the house, and then you were just like done. We would do like the little in-wall guys that had Ethernet ports sticking out. So then, you know, if they wanted a wired connection, they're done. If they're normal human beings and they just want everything wireless, you have a pretty decent wireless experience with Unify. And then I could just, you know, log in and control everything. And we wanted to do it with the local Unify client or Unify controller, because I think there was a big issue with the hosting it for ourselves. Oh yeah, we hadn't at the time we hadn't figured out Proxmox. I hadn't ever spent a significant amount of time with it, and so I was like, I don't want to have a like rack of these things sitting out. So nowadays, though, if you could do it like hosted, that's what my current company does. Is we just host a Unify controller that has different sites, and then everything's just backed up all the time. And if that were to go down, it would be a very bad day. So,
yeah, I suppose you get into some issues with maybe customer data privacy type things for certain customers. If you can host them locally, that all kind of goes away. It's like your data stays there. It actually never even leaves your house. So, yeah.
Well, and I mean, as far as the controller goes, yeah, I guess you have like what devices are connected and when. So that's definitely something that I as an ISP don't want to have and don't want to have.
Like I don't care. Like
yeah, I don't care,
you do
and
what
I don't
you want to do, and
yeah.
I just make sure you're connected.
Yeah, that was always like my policy for logging is we logged the absolute minimum we could, and unless and like when we were doing diagnostics and I had to turn on more logging, that could be like, hey, you know, I'm going to be watching the NAT state, the NAT table and stuff where you're going. I didn't care, and like we'd always have like the MikroTik connection tracking stuff going, but we never logged that anywhere unless we were doing diagnostics. And then I would tell the customer, hey, I'm turning this stuff on. It's going to get turned off as soon as you say that everything's working, but we will be logging stuff. And everyone always felt like why are you telling me this? And I was like, this is for you. I don't want this. I'm just letting you know.
This should be the norm, but it's not. So here you go.
Yeah. So yeah, have you ever run into that? Like hey, like a customer's like, do you have this information? I'm like, no, I don't want to have this information.
So I can't say that we've had that with any of our customers yet. I'm sure it's going to come at some point. But yeah, it's like, I don't want to know what you're doing. I don't care what you're doing. As long as it's not illegal and we're not getting DCMA notices, you do what you want to do. So it's free open internet.
Yeah, it's a really interesting when you get the warrant. It was really funny for me because one time the officer, she was the most professional person I have ever interacted with, like absolutely wonderful cop, great, but her last name was Barbie, and so I was like, okay, no comments whatsoever because I will die.
Yeah. Oh, that's too good.
Yeah, it was so like I had to double check, and like I was like, is this actually? And I looked to the county records, and I was like, oh, that is a cop, and she's bigger than me. Not saying anything.
Well, we'll just let that be.
Yes, ma'am was what I said at all times. I was never said anything else. Oh, and then I guess we have containers on x86 now, so you can do all sorts of all the craziness. Was there anything else that you were noticing of the latest patch in 7.4? 7.4
No,
beta?
I think the big one I'm waiting for is NAT and VRFs. That's been kind of a pain point for me, not being able to NAT in any of the tables outside of main. So that's one I've been kind of waiting on. I actually opened a bug with Microtik. They said they already knew about it, but didn't offer any more information, unfortunately.
I wonder, so is that is that just a bug, or just like they haven't implemented NAT on that?
I believe they said it was a known issue. So
okay, it should be working. Okay, because I haven't done a lot with the VRF stuff, but it seems to me like firewalling worked just fine. So
yeah,
I wonder if
it's for I've got a couple MDU customers that they want to run their own private stuff on the same infrastructure as like serving internet to their tenants. And so they want it ultra separated, like no chance that it's ever going to, whoops, made a mistake on the firewall kind of thing. So totally separate routing tables, everything like that. And then they're all combined over a Metro Ethernet, like a layer 2 VPLS type bridge.
okay.
So we're running separate VLANs across that, and so just trying to keep things kind of ultra separated as more of like a carrier type situation. And not being able to do NAT and VRF, like I have a whole separate router just to do NAT on the outside after everything aggregates up at the head end. So
yeah,
I'll be happy when that comes back.
Yeah. So then, that is interesting. That's a bummer. Yeah. So, well, that'll be really nice. Did that work previously? What firmware are you? That's in V7, right?
That's V7. That was 6.
I didn't think V6 had
LTS
it.
branch. Yeah, I wasn't actually doing it in V6 because all this has been all deployed V7. So
yeah. So
that was
this is
the
just
first time I ran into it.
Yeah. Okay. I did actually, for the first time, help somebody with the BGP communities in V7, and they are so nice, actually. So just as a heads up for people, like you can do all sorts of fun stuff with V7's communities now, and there's almost endless. So I have grown actually pretty happy with V7's new filtering system. Like it's definitely a pain in the neck, and it's not like, oh, here, what are the options that you want? Here you go. Like filling out a sushi menu sushi. Like what does that like look like, and what do I want, and which roles? It would be nice to have some version of that back for like just basic configs, because there's a lot of really basic ones that guys are really struggling with, and it's a bummer. But I definitely
most of my stuff's all been just like pre-pen, local preference, real basic stuff. I haven't gotten too far. I'm not actually accepting full tables yet in the one ISP network because we don't have multiple upstreams yet. So not really any point in banging on the router any more than I have to yet. So as soon as I do, though, I'm sure I'll get into that. I do prefer the new syntax, being able to basically write your whole rule in a prefix list, more like Cisco-esque or Juniper-esque. But yeah, having some of those basic functions like, hey, I just want to prepend, or I just want to set this value on everything that I receive from this peer would be really, really nice. Just that real basic, you don't have to learn the use of syntax and stuff, just for kind of that barrier to entry. Or if you could like select those options and it would spit out what the new config style is, would be pretty cool too.
Yeah, if we could get hey, here was like just a web interface of here's the old V6 config, and then and it spits out whatever it would do for that. And it's the V6 to V7 stuff it's not pretty, but it's also, it works. I've definitely ran it and ran into plenty of networks. It's like, oh yeah, okay, you're doing this, it's fine. But it definitely
hasn't bit me yet, but yeah, it's not pretty.
yeah, it would be nice to be able to have that. I know a lot of guys have requested that, so oh well. Although Netwatch, they've added support for more advanced probing. If you go to the help page for that, you can now do HTTP calls to like various pages. I didn't explore it too deeply, but what I think that there was some level of like, you could even like parse like what you were getting and see what and then respond off of that. And so that was really cool. I am looking forward to like really them expanding their options, because there's a lot of guys who do a lot with Netwatch. It's like, that's how you detect when something goes down, because like I was helping a guy just last week where it's like his upstream, sometimes the like a router above that router would puke its guts out, and the only way he could detect if there was a problem was if he was able to get to his SIP provider, which was what he was using that upstream for. And so it's like, how do we detect, can we get to the SIP provider, right? What set IPs are we just going to trust or will always be up? And unfortunately, not all the IPs from the SIP provider respond to pings, because they have a network administrator who who blocks ICMP. Do not do that. Dag nabbit. Oh my goodness.
Security through obscurity is not security.
No.
Gotta preach that one.
Yeah, and you just make everyone else in the world life miserable when they try to do diagnostics off of your network. So
make very crabby people.
Yeah, very much so. You make a consultant multiply the number of hours he's going to be working. So
do you have ICP on your network? Okay, it's going to take 2 hours. Do you have it off? Okay, it's going to take 8.
Are we working with a network that blocks ICMP? Yep, we're gonna. Yep. Yeah, it's just not going to be a good day. So don't do that. It's not a nice thing. Be good to other people. So let's see. Actually, before we get off of ICMP, before this cast, you were talking about how you were doing diagnostics on. You have TCP retransmissions because you've been doing some diagnostics and you threw Presee in, and they were talking about TCP. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. We had switched our upstreams a couple of months ago, and pretty much this was prior to having Presee. Almost immediately within, I don't know, say 2-3 days, there was just phone call after phone call. My Netflix was buffering, my VPN's dropping, you name it. And obviously, went through the whole network, looking at interface errors, drops, CRC errors, all that kind of stuff. Everything looks clean, running ping tests all over the place. We have pinging everything in the network, obviously SNMP monitoring, all your kind of basic type network monitoring type systems, and everything looked good. Couldn't figure it out. Eventually talked to Presee, and they're like, yeah, we can, well, we were also looking at them to do our shapers. Right, we were previously using just the built-in Ubiquiti ones, traffic shaping, which aren't shapers. I guess policers is probably a more correct term. Basically you hit your limit and everything else gets dropped. So like, okay, maybe that's what's causing it. We're a bridge network at the moment. We got about 10 towers, 160 customers. Maybe we're getting to the point where we just got too much going on, and we need to just allow that stuff to flow up to the core. We've got plenty of backhaul bandwidth and everything like that. And so got Presee in, got it all set up, and within like they let the data kind of gather for about a day or two before we actually started looking at it. And the first thing they said was, you have the most lossy network I've ever seen. I was like, oh, that stinks. and so we're seeing like 35 to 40% TCP retransmit rates, and that should be like sub 5%, in a good network. With hopefully even less, but probably never zero. And so since then, we've been working with our upstream, and they were thinking maybe it was something with our gear. And it's like, well, it's across our entire network. We've got wireless customers, we've got wired customers. Basically, we've got like core router and switch right off, and then they're Ethernet right off that switch. So I don't think it's our our wireless network is that wired customer is seeing the exact same loss percentage as every single one of our other customers. And so we've been going back and forth with them. They thought it was the way that we were peering with them. So we've, switched fibers. We initially set up with a single physical port and 2 VLANs to do multi-home, or sorry, not multi-home. What's the word? Single ISP dual uplink. I'm trying to think of the
like lag.
No.
Okay,
Right, I guess it would be dual home, not dual multi-home, but just dual homed. So we've got two BGP sessions to the same ISP, and we were doing those over separate VLANs on a single physical interface. So they were saying, well, we're seeing some untagged traffic and this and that, and turns out it was their equipment that was sending the untagged traffic. And so now we have a single BGP session just native on the port, and the old one still on the VLAN. And we're seeing the same loss. So we can turn down one BGP session, let all the traffic flow out the the native port, and we're seeing the exact same loss. So still trying to get that tracked down. We're looking at a couple other solutions to do like synthetic monitoring and things like that can kind of monitor those different hops in the network and monitor the different services and kind of give us some more visibility into that, to try to kind of track that down, because still everything looks great in our network. It's like there's no errors, there's no nothing. We can ping all over the place. We can do synthetic, actually using a new piece of software called New Relic, and they have the ability to do some synthetic monitoring. So you can set up probes within your network and then do like TCP tests between them, like curls, or you can actually set up like full like page load and login like scripts. So, okay, how long does it take for the initial page to load? Then you have it inject like a username and password, go through the login process, do that whole. It's actually extremely sophisticated. I'm just on the curl piece so far, just to kind of get that data for, okay, inside our network, we're seeing very low TCP latency. All of our high latency is outside the network, so it has to be something with our upstream, just to kind of keep proving to them that it's not something in our network, because they keep they're like, well, I'm not saying it's your network, but it's kind of hinting at, well, maybe it's something there. And it's like, I can't find any done packet captures and this and that, and yeah, it's like it's all the same across the entire network. So the only real common piece, unless it happens to be the core router, we haven't had a chance to have a downtime to test outside of that yet, but yeah, unless it's that core router, that there's really nothing else it can be. So that's been a really frustrating one.
I know that we had one time with one of our upstream providers, and it was just absolutely by chance. We always directly connect our upstreams into our routers, but because we'd upgraded to a 10 gig and we were running a 1036 at that edge, and that 1036 was one of the older ones that only had 1 gig ports. We had a CRS 305 that we'd done the 110 gig to them, and then we just did 3 bonded ports back to our router. And we were running into issues with them, and they were they were really good guys, and they never really questioned if I told them, largely because I always. And so, but this one time it's like, man, I don't know what's going on. There's something weird here. And what we just did is we dropped one of the Ethernet ports out of the bond and then just bridged it and put it in the bridge, so that then I could just plug a laptop directly in and do testing off of that. And luckily we had a /29 from them, so I just popped onto another IP and called it a day. And so then it was really, really clear at that point. Although then once again, you're stuck with, oh, well, could it be the switch? So there's always one single point of failure, unfortunately, when you don't have redundant stuff. So hopefully, and that's why you have multiple upstreams. It's really handy. Because
working on that.
Yeah.
We're a little starved in the area for upstream, so it's trying to find fibers is tough.
It's always so hard, and that's always like the big frustration that a lot of guys are fighting with a lot of the time.
And just getting a decent price on it, because it seems like they don't have consistent pricing everywhere, right? So even if it's Lumen here versus Lumen over there, you could be, thousands of dollars difference.
Oh yeah, and you're just like, well, and I've gone from like one company was charging us like $3,500 a month for 1 gig, and then we got a Zayo 10 gig circuit for $1,600, and it's like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Like, oh, everything. So yeah, it's super, super. But and one thing I say is like, the redundancy just is a huge lifesaver, even though it's insanely cost. You have these insane variations. You're going to get a huge amount of benefit from one, just the backup connectivity, but two, the asymmetrical routing that can happen, which means that you can now have traffic, you can guide traffic back into your network, or like get benefits of, okay, maybe this one guy is connected into layer 3 or Century, that's Lumen now, and you've got really good connectivity over there for Lumen stuff. Well, you can have Hurricane Electric over here, which has good connectivity to X, Y, and Z. And then, if you can get into a data center with a decent internet exchange, that's going to give you a lot of benefits there too. So if you ever get the chance, it's definitely worth it. On your situation though, like from the router, is there any are you able to do any ping testing across their network? Do you see any latency or packet loss there?
Generally, no. Although there has been a couple of instances where I've done like trace routes or NTRs into our network, and I do see packet loss, or at least ICMP drops upstream of them, of our upstream. So our upstream. And when I reached out to them, they're like, well, yeah, it's probably just their routers not, prioritizing ICMP traffic. And I was like, yeah, I don't think I buy that, because if your router is that overloaded that you can't process ICMP traffic, I think you got some other problems going on.
Yeah, I've definitely run into sometimes where like, okay, yeah, it's too consistent, and like you do it's ICMP like at the middle of the night when everything's really slow, and you still see that. That's usually how I like try and get around there. Like, hey, I did it at this time when there was not much traffic going for anybody. Come on, maybe.
Well, and if it was my upstream, that's one thing. But when it's their upstream, it's like, okay, how much pull do I have as one customer to get them to go talk to that upstream and figure out, actually what's going on? So,
yeah, and that's always a really hard issue.
The
Yeah,
internet's the Wild West. Everybody's just got to play nice, and hopefully everybody's honest, and we'll work together.
Yeah. Well, so speaking of honest and working together, there's a new RouterOS vulnerability. Margin Research just released a GitHub for how that is exploited, and it's available for basically everything all up to 649.6. They just released a code for exploiting RouterOS on x86. It's a buffer overflow, and depending on the architecture that you're using, there's different amounts of buffer overflowing you need to do to get what you need to do, and to jump where the code is laid out in memory, then you need to jump certain different ways to put together a actual program to run to do your own, to get your actual root control. The issue or mitigation for this is that it does require that the person already has admin privileges on your RouterOS device. So it's a jailbreak, but it's not huge, worrisome. So, you know, as long as your equipment's secure, don't give random people access to your router who you don't particularly. But I actually was just looking. There was I forgot to make a note of it, but there was another company that had done that just did a expose on like how does RouterOS work. And geez, I wish if I find the link after the show, I will put it in the show notes, because it was really interesting read about how RouterOS works in like messaging in between different services and how things are laid out and how they were able to get into the lower parts, because what they just did is they took a firmware image and then edited it so that it didn't have the copy protection stuff, and then they just ran it in a debugger. So these guys looked like they were playing off of some of that information that came out. It was probably about a month ago, and using a lot of that signaling. It's really cool to just kind of get a little bit better understanding of the underlying how MikroTik works. And just the various, like how much that company has changed the Linux operating system to make things like be really kind of cool and moderately secure. And there's some issues, definitely. I guess
there always is. I mean, nothing's 100% secure.
Yeah. So slightly worrisome if you are in the habit of giving out admin username and passwords, but don't do that and you'll probably be fine. Let's see. Were you bitten at all by the CloudFlare outage?
Fortunately, no.
Yeah,
we lucked out. So we currently don't run our own DNS resolvers yet. We don't have the infrastructure to do that. So we actually had CloudFlare is actually our secondary DNS. We use Quad 9 as the primary just because our upstream happens to have a really low latency to them. And fortunately, it didn't bite us because Quad 9 stayed up. And though had they both failed at the same time, then yeah, we probably would have been bit by that. But yeah, fortunately, skated around that one this time.
Yeah, we had a few issues for my company. We use CloudFlare for half of our DNS resolving servers. So for like Bob's website blah 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 .com. We have all the resolving servers. Half of them are hosted by CloudFlare, and then the other half, I think we do Hurricane Electric. I'd have to double check with Mike on that one. So we half of those went down, and so there was some issues because I was actually in the middle of like setting up a new service for a customer, and I was like trying to log in, like check that the website was going up because I like had the DNS. I knew it propagated out, and like Google was working, but I couldn't go ask our own servers. No, those weren't working, and they weren't working because I'd hard coded them for the test, and it's like freaking stupid. So that was a half hour, 45 minutes of why isn't this working? What did I do wrong? Oh, right. Cloudflare's it's
not actually me.
That's not my fault this time. Thank goodness.
Those are the worst because I always second guess myself. You know, you're working on something and all of a sudden everything goes down. It's like, okay, I didn't change anything. I wasn't working on anything that would have caused this outage. And okay, why did everything just go down? Then when you finally get that explanation, it's like, just that like sigh of relief.
Yeah, the weight off of your heart just is like, oh my goodness, I'm not about to just like, because I take a lot of pride in what I'm running, and like every time something bad happens, I just blame myself, and it's probably not healthy and something that's like probably not good. Well, it's good to make me a decent network operator, but
Yeah.
but it's
Don't want to
definitely
be too
not
hard
good
on yourself.
yeah, definitely not good for your long-term health. So, yeah, definitely feel free to check to make certain that somebody else didn't screw up. Their write-up though was super cool, and talks about BGP filtering, and was really actually interesting with what happened because and they talk about how they internally review changes, and like they have a drop all rule, and it got moved above rules for allowing through certain management interfaces and some other stuff, the loopback IPs, and that just got put above the loopback allows, and we're done. And so, and I know I've definitely done that, like with a firewall, and it's like, oh, hey, this, drop all rule. Oh, hey, I need to move this around, and didn't realize it. And then I can't access the router. So that does make me feel better that even though that I, as a single guy alone, the same mistakes I make can be made with a larger organization. And that you really do have to like test things in lab, and make certain that, hey, this thing isn't going to break.
But your production's not your lab.
Not my major production. I have this set of customers and like a pop that's off on the side and like really close to my house. And they were my test case. I gave them extra internet, and like they all had my personal cell phone number. So if stuff broke, they would let me know very quickly. But that was probably my most effective lab, because it was a legitimate customers and legitimate. But yeah, that's a beautiful thing about MikroTik, in my opinion, is I can have a whole stack of routers over here that are screaming away, and I can test, okay, this config, does this work? How does this work? What does this do actually? And then I can just copy and paste from one of those routers the config that I'm changing to the new, like a production test router, is what I called it. And so that was a huge, that like building that workflow was really good. And I definitely recommend it for anybody I work with. Like, have multiple layers of testing so that you one can learn what's being changed, and then two, make those changes in a controlled way, and that you're going to be able to like verify, oh, hey, this is, because even then, like, there'd be weird gotchas of like, oh, hey, this one exception in this network that we made 4 years ago because, oh, this customer is unique and we need to do this special thing to handle their unique use case. Without fail, there'd be one of those that any freaking change you make is going to break. So
well, I wish I could say that was unique. I mean, I've worked with some large ISPs, and they have the same problem. Little one-off changes that were made. They're trying to automate things and be able to standardize and all that. And yeah, they have the same problems as we do as the little guys. So it's a very interesting kind of situation to be in. And I bought just like a little stack of HAP lights, I think they were, like, I don't know, 8-10 of them or something like that. They're $30-$40 a piece. And I was able to stand up like a whole MPLS backbone, stand up little VPLS tunnels. I mean, I wasn't pushing more than a couple megs of traffic across it with the CPUs, but I could lab an entire MPLS backbone network for $500 because it's running the same code as the $5,000 brand new 2116 or whatever it is, that'll do 100 gigs. So now, yeah, you can have some gotchas with the different like chipsets and whatever, but as far as like getting the config down into something that will function, you're like 95% of the way there for very dirt cheap.
Yeah, and like a lot of that stuff is like bridge config and stuff like that, which, and I mean switches, but yeah, these are my lab routers a lot of the time. Worst ones to get, in my opinion, because the fans on the back here scream all night long.
Yeah, it's not great.
No, but I liked the RB 2011s, 2001s. Those were really nice, but I have a stack of these because we decommissioned a whole bunch of towers, and so and it's like, oh, not going to be using these anymore. Hey, I'll take these.
5009s would be perfect if you can get your hands on them, because you can, in one U, you stick 4 boxes, and so like get 3 U together and you got 12 routers. You can all set up a whole lab.
Yeah, and
a little more expensive perhaps, but
yeah.
But I mean, what are you going to buy if you were going to lab with Cisco gear? That's going to get you maybe one gray market router, if that.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be.
And will it have licensing for service provider stuff? That's a whole other.
Yeah, a whole nother game.
Yep.
I will say though, I do like working with Mike Hammett because he's like, every time he's buying something, even if it's like crazy expensive, he'll buy another one just for our lab. And so like I have this whole Occam switch and just like some Calyx gear and just GPON and equipment, and basically anything that's in our network, it's sitting in our lab, and it's like, oh hey, I want to figure out how this thing works. What happens when I unplug this line card? Get to do it.
I will say that's unique. Most people don't do that. That's really nice.
Mike's a unique guy. It's one of the pluses of working with him. So it definitely, if you can be a good employer, it makes hiring guys like, oh hey,
all you employers out there or operators, buy a lab gear for your guy.
Yeah, lab gear. Well, and that's another like. Somebody was talking a few weeks ago on using open source in their, like going just full on all open source for their routing and switching and such. And they posted, I think it was BIOS, I think was what they were talking about. And what they were thinking is just, throw x86 servers in various places and just utilize that with VLAN tagging, and I think they had a switch that had VXLAN tagging, and they were looking at doing like the white box switches in their network as well. Unfortunately, I lost it in the Brothers WISP conversation Slack, but it was a really interesting conversation. Like, okay, what are you looking at, and like, what are going to be the benefits for that? Because you're just, well, what will run, and then what commodity hardware. And I like the idea largely because like you can scale that down pretty far. Now, admittedly, you can't scale it, I think, far enough down for like a guy in his like house to have a lab, because like those white box switches, even the fiber store ones, I was looking at them, they were pretty expensive. They were an order of magnitude more expensive than a similarly sized, just plain old fiber store switch that had like the standard VLAN tagging, could do BGP, could do various other like Cisco-esque stuff. Of course, I wasn't using anything other than the VLAN, so not that I'm a great, not that I was looking too deeply, but the white box switches are not cheap. But in comparison to other stuff, have you played at all with any of them?
I haven't. It's mostly just been like, okay, if I can buy a MikroTik that'll do all that stuff for under $1,000 generally, at least with the scale I'm working at right now, I would have to spend probably $2,000 to $3,000 to get an x86 platform to do kind of similar functionality. Now, some of that might change as I've seen some new like Raspberry Pi related projects. There's like new Arduino boards and things that are touted as like routers, and they come with multiple Ethernet interfaces and that kind of thing. And they're running ARM, obviously, so the same as kind of what MikroTik is moving towards. I think as some of that stuff picks up, there may be more of kind of like a cost element to be able to justify doing some of that. But right now, just trying to find x86 hardware, unless you're going to go, off eBay, and even then, not coming with hard drives. It's not coming with, RAM. You get a kind of a shell with a CPU and a motherboard, and then you got to, add all the other pieces. By the time you're all said and done, it's like you're well over what you could just buy a MikroTik for, and then it's a, box you stick in there. It's got an API. I don't know how, it's something that a huge number of people use. I'm not really up on how big the community is around some of that white box stuff. I know there was like some of the cloud providers, I think, tried to go kind of white box for a while, like Azure and AWS, but it didn't scale far enough for them. So they end up just building their own hardware and operating system and everything. So I don't know. I don't see it yet, and it's not something I guess I would pursue right now, just based on kind of cost. I love open source, as a kind of general rule of thumb. I use a lot of open source software. I contribute back to the community when I am able, which isn't very often because those people are usually a lot smarter than me. But even if it's something simple like documentation, just recently I was going to integrate my network management system with an IDP, do SAML authentication instead of just using the built-in, like database authentication. And there wasn't documentation for the IDP provider that I'm using currently. And so I figured out, there was a couple kind of different configs that you had to do, and got that all figured out. And then I just submitted some documentation to did a pull request, and now there's documentation for how to do that for anybody else that comes along and wants to kind of do the same thing. So those are usually the contributions, at least, that I do, but I consume a large amount of open source software and projects, because it's great, when you can kind of help them by using it, submitting issues. Those are helpful as well. Maybe you're using it slightly different than somebody else, or the same, and they're having the same issue, and hey, now we both have the same issue, and we've got more data to figure out, and give to the developers to kind of track down what might be going on. So yeah, I love open source software, white box switches and routers. I don't know if it's quite there, hardware wise. I think for cloud providers to have gone after, some of those operating systems, the what's the one, Cumulus Linux and some of those other ones, they have to at least be mature enough that, those large cloud providers were at least using it for a while. For me, it just kind of comes down to the cost. I can buy a MikroTik for a lot less, and it does everything I need it to do, and I don't have to piece little bits and pieces together.
Yeah, well, and I think a lot of us are kind of too small potatoes for a lot of that bigger iron stuff. If I recall, the guy was like trying. He had a pretty large fiber network, if I recall correctly. I'm blanking actually at the moment. I'm kind of just grasping at straws, but it would be kind of interesting to see like the industry be able to have more at the lower end, like more options for how do we want to interact with our gear, and what was that gear going to be running? Because really, at this end of the market, you have some Cisco gear, Juniper. I see a lot of guys with running MX. Let's see, was it 204s? Which apparently have been are hitting end of life.
Maybe see a flood of those soon.
Yeah, well, there's going to be more of
if
those.
You want to run end of life hardware.
Yeah, well, there's plenty of guys who've been running old Cisco. I think Greg was talking about, he had was it this like, what was the like amazing Cisco switch like 15 years ago? I'm trying to remember. It just had like a bazillion 1 gig PoE ports and just never died.
Oh, like the 3750X is probably.
Right. Yeah, something like that. It's just they're bulletproof, never went down.
Yep.
Yeah.
Past employer I worked at, they used those in their operational technology networks, so like control networks and stuff. And they would have, they had, totally physically separate networks, an A path, B path type thing. And they would literally have, a dozen of these 3750Xs sitting on the shelf, and one would die. They'd just go pull one out of the box, drop it in, off they go. And I mean, the thing's 15 years old. It's been sitting on a shelf for 15 years, but they just swap it out, and they're good for another 15 years.
That's the best. I really like it when a manufacturer like makes really solid, good hardware. Unfortunately, yeah, less and less so much now. Well, and we also want our equipment to do. We don't want just a switch. We want a switch that can do BGP and layer 3 stuff and blah 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 blah. So
I want to have my cake and eat it too.
Yeah, well, I can't blame you for that. I can't blame anybody for that. Speaking of open source, I think Justin Wilson mentioned open source caching. There's this company named this group called QWILT. Have you looked at any of that?
I have not had a chance to look at that, but it's kind of interesting to me as someone who isn't in IX.
Yeah. Well, and like that's kind of what these caching services provide is like, somewhat IX benefits. And like I was looking through the like list of like providers that support it, and you've got Plex, Showtime, HughesNet, Disney Streaming, like a lot of these Amazon Prime Video, a lot of Amazon stuff. So Twitch, which to me is like, that's awesome. If you can throw, some storage at a couple servers, and because storage is super cheap, you just throw storage at this stars. Oh, geez, yeah. So and that can offload, a couple hundred megs at least of traffic, because all that needs to happen is one time, you download the video or the content, whatever it is. And then you've got a bunch of, you can redistribute that content multiple times. That can save you a lot of traffic. I know at my old company, I spent a lot of time looking at various stuff, and this hadn't existed when I was looking. They have Hulu too. So I'd be really interested to take a look at like how that, what they can do and how that would improve things.
Yeah, it's something I might have to actually take a look at, because like you, I've looked at other solutions in the past, and I was like, it ended up just coming down to cost. It's like I can't afford to put this in my network right now. So if there's I've got storage and CPUs laying around that I've got some old like DCOM servers and stuff. Like I can grab those and put some software on it, and that might be a good way to kind of offload some of that traffic. We're not super congested at the moment, so it's probably not something I'll look at immediately, but just knowing that that's out there, that would be an example of an open source project I would definitely support.
Yeah. So definitely take a look at this, and if you can, this is always like, this could save you money in the long run, because you don't have to upgrade from a 10 gig to 10 gigs, or a 10 gig to jump it up all the way up to 100 gig. While I was talking to Mike and the other day, like 100 gig pricing is coming down. It's coming a lot closer to 10 gig, but it's not there yet, and there's still a pretty big jump, and that's not counting the costs for internally your network. Like getting 100 gig ports is not cheap. Even nowadays with MikroTik, you're spending a pretty penny on equipment that has that, and then also redistributing that across your network. That's a pretty tall ask for a lot of guys, I think, at this point.
I feel like bandwidth this way kind of grows a little bit in a like step graph. So it's not really so much like nice linear straight line. We get 1 gig all of a sudden is now, or I guess it would be maybe down, but 1 gig pricing is now equal to 10 gig pricing, and then you were kind of going down a little bit, but then then we get the next drop, and it's tough to kind of like keep up with all of that. So you're trying to up your ports at the same rate as the pricing is coming down, and be able to use this. I think I see that as a good kind of help smooth that line out just a little bit. I'm not, I've got a 1 gig circuit now. I don't necessarily need 2 gig, but they're not going to sell me a 1.5 gig. So, or maybe I have to jump to a 5 gig depending on what my upstream will provide me, whatever they, have available. So, I don't need to jump from 1 to 5, but if I can go from 1 to, 1250 using something like this, okay, now I can maybe justify that extra. Okay, I'll have an extra 250 megs of overhead going to the, 2 gig or whatever it is.
Yeah, and so, and just in general, like lowering your latency for your customers. Like if this is able to, get them whatever their show is. Notably, like I'm not seeing Netflix in here, but maybe they might be looking at becoming more, friendly with people and start playing nice as their market share is kind of decreasing a little bit. But like I know it's always was always my dream at my last job to have enough bandwidth going to Netflix to be able to say, hey, I'd like to get one of your content delivery boxes thrown into my CO. Never, I think, I can't remember, they have a pretty specific rule, but like if you're doing over like 1 gig or like 2 gigs at peak time, they'll talk to you. Otherwise, it's like you're just another Joe Schmo, and they aren't going to spend. They're sending you, they're sending you $500,000 or a lot of money worth of equipment. So I can't fault them for it, but being able to hit those kind of that size and being able to keep that content inside of your network and that traffic inside of your network and improve your customers' experience. And that's what we're always trying to do, because we're just we work with our neighbors, and
well, everything on that you can control. So if the performance is poor, it's like, well, it's on you then. Like I guess maybe good or bad, but you can't blame the upstream anymore because you're caching all that. So it's like, well, yeah, it is our problem, but at least then it's something that's within your control to go and fix.
Yeah, something that you can control and can fix. That's always a big plus in my book. Just because I know that I will fix it as fast as I can. I can't. I have trust issues, Zach. I don't trust people.
Yep, I'm in the same boat. Never trust upstreams.
Yeah, never trust somebody else to do a job that you can do. That's probably not healthy. Did you have anything else that you were wanting to throw onto the spreadsheet, or for what you were wanting to talk about?
No, I think that that covered it pretty good.
Okay.
Talked about a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we did. Let's see here. Trying to think if there was any other big notable things that popped up into my my mind. I'm not really coming up with it. Well, I guess we might as well stick a fork in it. Zach, I guess. Oh, actually, I haven't talked about Zach. He's a little brother. You've been on the show before, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So, but this is the first time I think you and I have been on the show together. No, I think we've been on the show together. But Zach's a little brother. He's been he's always contributing. If you want to join in on the Little Brothers WISP, go to patreon.com/the Brothers WISP. I didn't mention this last time. Or I did. It was something else. But throw us a couple bones. We actually got a new Patreon subscriber. Let's see, that was Trent. So he joined us. He's from your company, right, Zach?
Correct.
Yeah. So we waiting for him to join in, but he's been there. Join up with us. Yeah. Oh my God. I just got really hot. Wow. Need to have the AC kick in. So yeah, definitely join up with us. There we have a lot of really cool conversations. Sometimes we're a little bit more goofy. we're talking about the various insane ways we could utilize MikroTik containers. My last comment actually for that was we could have containers running unpatched versions of Windows on all of our customer routers and finally implement XKCD, the number 350, which is virus wars. They're randomly opening and infecting various Windows computers, and that was always a like magical image in my mind after I read it as a high schooler. We could actually do this, guys. We just need to figure out the monitoring.
Or you have honeypots on every customer router and just overwhelm all the hackers. They can't hack all the awesome honeypots out there. You use up all the resources.
Yeah, you could put out like honeypots of XP, IIS, unpatched Apache. You could be like the hackers, like, oh my goodness, this is the best thing I've ever encountered, and then
we found the mother load.
and let them waste years and years, and then you could let's see, was it there's a web service that for email that you can like auto report people for like, hey, when this is a bad actor. I can't remember what the name of it off the top of my head is, but we could just report people that are hacking our honeypots across all of the internet, all thanks to Docker being available to us. So all sorts of crazy ideas, fun facts, really intelligent conversation, and guys who can even talk politics without jumping down each other's throats. So
utopia.
Yeah, it's great. Come join us. Help support the podcast. Get and get questions answered and help answer questions, because there's a lot of guys helping with a lot of that. If people were wanting to reach out to you, Zach, how should they?
Pretty much Brothers WISP Slack is the best way. I do have a Twitter that I pretty much never use, so I won't even mention that. But yeah, I'm in the Brothers WISP Slack, pretty active in there. So feel free to DM me if you have anything specific, and otherwise, yeah, there's lots of good discussion in there.
Yeah. So if you're looking to reach me, Brothers WISP Slack, I'm always there. I've been really lax in my Mimosa community being there, but I am Tommy3 or something like that nowadays on the Mimosa forums. If you want to talk to a fanboy there who can sometimes help you out, answer your questions, I'm definitely try to be helpful there. Tommy at Lost Creek Technology is my email, so you can shoot me an email there, or you can email the Brothers WISP at thebrotherswisp@gmail.com. Shoot us an email there, and it'll get to me. And if you're wanting to know something Brothers WISP related, let's see. I have my website, lostcreek.tech. It's terrible. Don't go there unless you're looking for something very, very specific. Yeah, I think those are the normal ways to reach out to me.
I guess maybe I could plug my blog real quick. Just ZachWilds.net.
Yeah.
There we go. I've got some weird kind of off the wall stuff out there, little issues that I've come across with random technology. I don't blog regularly, but if you're looking for stuff with like automation, generally Python, Ansible, that kind of stuff, as I come across kind of weird issues that I don't see well documented, I put stuff on there. So
yeah, so that's kind of what I use my blog for. So, or helpful tutorials for people. So,
or for me to reference when I forget.
Yes, I have done that so many
times. At my Google Analytics, and it's all my same IP hitting that.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll catch you guys later. Have a wonderful week, and happy 4th of July for all of us Americans, and then which is our Independence Day. And then Canada, I believe today is their Independence Day, July 1st. So at least I think I was talking to a Canadian who was mentioning that. So y'all take care and have a safe weekend.
You're now listening to Greg, it's the Brothers WISP. Let's take a ride through space on this mothership. Wireless networking, we talk about equipment and methodology, so sit back and start learning. Lighten up the tower so people can start searching. Shooting up the web in neighborhoods, net surfing. We got horrible jokes, we're loud and annoying, but we're informative facts, we're not disappointing. Just give us a listen, cause fun is the mission. I'm telling you, you don't know what you are missing. Ideas and some good comedy given. If you missed the show already, don't worry, you're forgiven.